I get no kick from champagne. Mere alcohol, it doesn't thrill me at all. So tell me, how can it be true that I get a kick out of you? Some like the bop type refrain.
Do we have anybody here who's a basketball fan?
I know that if I heard even one riff would bore me terrifically too. Yet I get a kick out of you.
George Carl. And let's give Charlie a hand for putting this together and allowing this to happen. I appreciate that. So anyway, what we're going to talk about now is we're going to talk about stance, grip, stroke, and just basically making a ball. And I'll show you the basic Englishes too. There's the 3 basic Englishes, which is making the ball, stop, follow, and draw. We'll go over all those things. Starting with the stance. And I know that Charlie didn't want me to get people down on the table, so I'm going to let you do it from right where you're at. The one thing that we want to do with your stance is you want to make sure that your arm, if you're right-handed or left-handed, is hanging naturally from the shoulder. Meaning hanging straight down like this from the shoulder, the way it naturally hangs. This is the way you want to shoot. You never want to have your hand tucked like this or be placing your arm in any other unusual way. It needs to be hanging from the shoulder. When you hold the cue like you would a suitcase handle. If you picked up a suitcase at San Diego Airport or Los Angeles Airport, if you picked it up and it weighed quite a bit, it would pretty much hold your fingers down, wouldn't it? You wouldn't be able to hold it like this with a grip like this very long. Not make it through the airport, you'd be pretty tired by the time you got to the end. So you let the hand just stay there like it's holding a handle. Now you don't grip the cue in any way, shape, or form. People say, what's the right grip? I said, if you have a grip, it's not right. Okay? You want to basically let the hand hang from the shoulder like this, and you want the thumb and index finger to touch. Just touch, not grip. Okay? The other fingers just naturally kind of curl underneath the cue. So it stands there just like this, hanging from my shoulder. Now the hardest part is to be able to get yourself in a position where your balance is even between both feet. You have your chin over the cue so you can see your shot the best, and you keep this natural angle right. Okay, so here's what you ideally want to do. And we're going to have everybody try this because it's kind of fun to try this. You put your arm to your side like this, and your feet should pretty much be at a 45-degree angle, like this. This back foot would normally be at about a 45-degree angle. Your front foot should basically be slightly to the left of straight up and down because you need to get your hips out of the way. And the toe of your front foot should be pointed at the object ball that you're shooting. Okay? That sounds like a lot. It's really not. It'll come naturally. But the way you make it natural is you put your arm down to your side like this, and you basically leave your shoulder there and turn your feet at a 45-degree angle without moving your shoulder. See what I just did? Yeah. Everybody stand up and try to do that. So you've got a shoulder hanging straight from here, and you're going to move your feet at 45 without moving your shoulder. It's not easy to do, is it? Because we're not used to isolating our bodies like that. But if you can get this to work without moving that shoulder, then this arm is going to swing straight from here like a hinge. Okay? So that's your goal, is to be able to leave this shoulder, move your feet, and leave it in that position. Okay? Because that way, this arm swings straight. All right? Okay, you can sit down. But that's one you can work on your own.
Clarification.
Yes.
When you said one of your feet should be pointing towards the target.
Correct.
You don't mean literally your big toe pointing towards the target, do you? What do you mean?
Pretty much, yeah.
Oh, you are.
Yeah, like if I'm going to shoot that 5 ball right here, my left foot is pointed at that 5 ball.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Now, this arm is hanging from the shoulder. If you can see behind me there, you can see it's hanging straight up and down. It's not like this. It's not like this. And my hand is not gripping. See, if you grip, you're going to have to steer where the back of this cue goes to hit a target. If you let your arm relax and you basically just let it swing from here, from the hinge of your arm, it'll go straight without you steering it. And the nice thing is, no matter how fast you swing it, as long as that arm stays fit, that ball will go straight, right? Because most of us have our biggest trouble making balls when we hit them hard, right? Well, if your arm is relaxed in a natural hinge here, and you just let it swing without tensing up, it'll go straight. Your whole job is then to get your body in position where you're behind the shot properly, so all it has to do is go straight to stay on that target, okay? But boy, that's the key in making shots. So with the footwork that we said there, the feet are basically at a 45-degree angle. The left toe, in my case if you're right-handed, points at the object ball. The arm here is hanging from the side with the hand being held, the hand holding the grip here with the fingers loose, just like a suitcase handle, hanging on the wrist. So the wrist has to be straight up and down. No cocking the wrist, no squeezing the cue. Okay? That's one step, all right? The bridges that you use, all right? There are several, because there are several times the cue ball is going to be in different spots, and it's going to vary because you've got a table that's shaped a certain way, and your hands have to mesh to fit that table. So if you're out on the table surface, there's two bridges that I would suggest. For those of you that are dead beginners, an open bridge is much easier to make than a closed bridge, okay? An open bridge basically is the hand flat on the table like this, taking the thumb and feeling like you're squeezing something between that and your index finger. You can practice by putting a dime between those fingers and holding the dime. Then you know your fingers are together. And it will not keep you from shooting shots. I don't have a dime, but I would show you that if I did. Basically, you'd hold it between these two fingers, and that makes sure that you're squeezing that there. The reason that's important is because that sets up like a little gun sight to rest the cue on, which is solid and can't play side to side, which will keep you on your targets, okay? So you take those fingers, you squeeze your thumb against the index finger, and then you basically just bring those fingers back, like by just taking the tips of your fingers and just letting them tuck underneath. You want to keep your fingers all straight, and ideally you want to have your fingers about the same distance apart, okay? The index finger should basically, the nail of your thumb should be in line with the nail on your index finger. A lot of you may use an open bridge and get teetered on the side like this. That's not good because the cue's going to want to do this. When you keep this around there, it becomes more of a tripod and it's solider. So if you make the nail of your thumb parallel to the nail on your index finger, your hand's going to be in the proper position. Does that help? Okay. Now, this is a closed bridge now. This is the more complex of the two, but really not that hard. And it doesn't matter that you have really big hands or small hands, thick hands, skinny hands. It doesn't. You can learn to do it. You might have to slightly vary it depending on your hand. And if you have trouble with this, when I'm done, I'll be glad to show you and make it a little bit better one-on-one. But you take your thumb, this is the key, take your thumb and put it as high as you can get it up against your middle finger. Not down here like this. High as you can get it, up against your middle finger. Okay? Then the index finger makes a big loop and comes in and just touches the tip of the thumb. That leaves a pretty good sized hole, which is large enough to rest the cue in. The cue basically rests on the thumb and middle finger. And this finger loops around and comes like this. You don't want it closed like this because it'll stick to your fingers. You want to make a big loop. So there actually is a gap there, slightly, okay? But the reason this bridge is better is when you follow through and you get into the fatter part of your cue, it actually does come up and kind of squeeze up against it. But what that does is eliminates a lot of the vibration in the shaft when you hit a ball hard. So it will actually help you to make shots. I generally, if I give a rule of thumb to people of when to use an open bridge and a closed bridge, assuming they're comfortable with both of them. You can make all of your shots, and you can be a professional level player using just this bridge on the table surface. Allison Fisher is a perfect example. The #1 female player in the last 20 years has used an open bridge exclusively. She's a snooker player, so she's used to playing with smaller balls. A closed bridge is tougher if this ball were smaller. Open bridge is easier because it's easier to raise up and down. So that's why a lot of the times they use that. Plus they're on a bigger table. It's easier to see the side a little bit because the finger's not in the way. But as far as stability, I would suggest if you're good with both bridges that you use the open bridge on anything. You can use the open bridge anytime you're shooting a ball 3 feet or less, or if you're going to hit the ball soft. It's just as good. If you're going to hit the ball hard, always use a closed bridge. If you're going to use low English, almost always use a closed bridge if you can, because it eliminates the vibration. Those are the times that the vibration becomes the most predominant. It's when you hit a ball hard or draw the cue ball.
And why do you care about the vibration?
Well, because actually vibration, if you've got a pocket that's difficult, like this one right here, that little bit of vibration on the contact point makes the contact of the cue stick onto the cue ball a little bit sketchy. And it will change where you actually hit this ball just ever so slightly. But that might be the difference in the ball going and not going. So it can actually cause you to miss balls. So I don't suggest that. But if you have an open bridge and you're really accurate with it, that's fine. I mean, you can play a very high level of pool, but if you had a choice of the two, I would do this on the longer shots, on the shots that you have to hit hard, and the low English shots. Okay? And with that finger, when you get that thumb up against that and put the up against the middle finger and you make that big loop, when this comes to the table, you keep these fingers spread out, and again, make like a tripod where the fingers are basically the same distance between here and here and here and here as much as possible. Okay? And that would be the stroke you would use, like if you were going to draw this cue ball, you know, back in the pocket or something like that. You wouldn't want to do that, obviously, but if you were going to draw the ball back, it's a little solid. Okay? Now, the ones that we have the most trouble with usually are when the cue ball gets around the cushions. Is that true? Most of the time, that's the toughest one? It shouldn't be, because a table is a support. Anytime you use this bridge or this bridge, the thing that's the same with both of them is you want the palm of your hand flat on the table if at all possible. Because you got a table that's well over 1,000 pounds, and you want to use that 1,000 pounds to help you support your shot. Okay? So, I would always suggest anytime you don't want to be up like this shooting a shot, if you can be down like this. And it's not, if you're using high English, you wouldn't have to use high English up like this anyway, because if you look at the angle of my cue, it's going downward. It's better if it's flat and slightly going upward. You'll get more high English on the ball that way. You'll get more action. So you certainly would not have a reason to be up like this. The only time you would is if you're trying to get around something. That's different, okay? But the two rail bridges that I suggest is if the cue ball is 3 inches or more off the rail, what you want to do is you want to rest the cue flat on the table. Now the nice thing about these tables is this is flush. If you go and play on a commercial pool table in a billiard room, most of the time this will angle down slightly, okay? So this is actually better, especially when you get the ball up against the rail, and I'll show you that in a second, because it lays nice and flat here. You never want to have more angle coming off of the rail than you, because you don't want to shoot down like this. That way you put spin on the ball, and it could cause you to barely miss shots a lot of the time if you don't know you're trying to put spin on the shot. So anytime you can make the cue stick as flat as possible, you want to do that. You lay it flat like this, you take your thumb and you put it on your little finger like this. Thumb on your little finger like this, okay? You put the cue stick up against the middle finger. This is underneath your hand like this. Up against the middle finger, and the index finger slides in up against it like this. So the reason we do this and not put our thumb on the other side or underneath is because if we get down low, we can't see over our hand. When we do this, we can still see over the top of it. So that's why it's important. But this bridge is the best bridge there is. If I were playing in a world tournament and that was my 9-ball, I'd be very happy. I like that shot. That's the best bridge I could possibly have to shoot that shot, because the table's supporting the shot 100%. All I've got to do is just let it rest on the table, and that's going to be nice and solid. Okay? Now, when the ball gets closer to the rail, let's say like right up against it like this bridge does not work very well because you don't have much space here, right? And you don't want your cue to only be stroking a couple of inches. That's not a very good stroke. You always want to have at least 6 inches of a backstroke possibility so you can follow through on a shot without having to punch it or create that power. You want the power to come just from the natural swing of the cue. So when it gets up against the rail like this, to make that happen, what you're going to do is you're going to have all 4 fingers together like this, and you're going to make a slight little hook with your thumb. Okay? And what that's going to do is you're going to put those 4 fingers up against the table with the cue up like this, and the hook basically comes around just to keep the cue from sliding off to the side. But if you'll notice, the cue is still touching the table the whole time. I'm not lifting it off the table. And when I follow through, I stay right there, and you see it follows the rail of the cue. Okay? What most people do wrong when they shoot off the rail is they think they have to hit the middle of this cue ball and they elevate like this and try to shoot down, right? Well, number one, if your arm's in this position, it's not in a very good stroking position, is it? Okay? Now, it is difficult because there are times when you get this situation where you can't follow because you won't have position on your next ball. So the exception to that rule is, yes, you might have to get up like this if you had to stop that ball for whatever reason. But that's the only time you're ever going to elevate shooting down off of a rail at that kind of an angle when it's up against it. You can't draw the ball because you can't get underneath the rail with your stick. That's the best you can pretty much do if you're up against the rail. But most of the time, we're really satisfied in making the shots off the rail, aren't we? We're not trying to do a whole lot with our cue ball. We're just trying to make the ball. You can hit this ball in soft if you only want to roll a couple inches. You can hit it with a nice follow through, and you can travel down to here if you needed to get to your next shot. Okay? So, cue stick flat like this. Basically raise the back end up just slightly. Now notice this. That's only a couple inches above parallel. You can see the table next to me here. Not way up like this. Just enough room to be able to slide your hand underneath and make that little hook with your thumb. Now if you'll notice, see how far away from the table I am with my body? If my left arm is extended, that way I can see the whole shot. When you get up against the rail, the last thing you want to do is stand up too much. If you get like this and you stand up like this, all you're looking at is the cue ball. You can't see that ball. But if you get back away from the table and reach out with your front hand, everything's in front of you. Target's really obvious and very easy to see.
Could you do that from over there? We can't see.
Actually, I sure can. I was just
Thank
trying to
you.
do it for her camera, but that's fine. I will do
understand.
that for you.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. So from this side, you rest the cue like this. You stay back. Now see how far away from the table I am? I'm not close to this table. Reach out with that front hand. Also makes it easier on your back to see the shot. And just stay there and follow through. But see, the cue stays on that same line all the way through the shot that way. It allows you to stay down better on your shots too. Okay? Does that help?
Yes, thank
Okay.
you.
All right? So that's the basic bridging technique that you're going to use. Now there's going to be exceptions. I'll show you a couple. Let's say you're up against the rail like this. You're only maybe an inch off the rail, but your cue, the ball you're going to shoot, is kind of at a diagonal or a 45-degree angle off the rail. Well, you can still use this bridge even though it's that close to the rail. Why can you do that? Because you can still make a 6-inch bridge. This bridge is never as good as this because this one holds it down, so there's no chance it's going to slip when you shoot. Okay? So you want to make sure anytime you can use this bridge over this bridge, you do. But if you're coming straight off the rail like this, you need to use this one every time. Okay? All right. All right, let's talk a little bit about the stroke. Okay, it's an easy definition. Basically, the stroke is is propelling the cue with a motion using the weight of the cue to distribute power. That's pretty much what it is. So, when you stroke the cue, the one thing you want to remember is there's not an acceleration on the last stroke. You're trying to do it at a rhythm that causes you to make the ball and have the cue ball end up to a certain place. Now, those of you that play golf, and I know a lot of you do, you wouldn't stand there on the practice tee, taking your practice putts, and then drive the thing down the fairway. One would have nothing to do with the other, right? If you take a stroke and you take a practice stroke, you want to make sure that the final stroke is as close to that practice stroke as you can make it, because that way you're going to get the result you're expecting, okay? Same thing's true with the stroke here with pool. When you get your ball aimed, you want to get a nice motion going, and when you're ready to hit the ball at the right speed, you just follow through. I usually suggest for most people that they should use 3 or 4 strokes before they hit the ball. Now you can take as long as you want to aim or get set on the ball that you need to, but once you're on your target and you've decided on a target, 3 to 4 strokes is enough, okay? If you had a horseshoe in your hand and you were going to throw a horseshoe at that corner, I've never thrown a horseshoe hardly in my life, but I certainly wouldn't do it on one swing, right? But I wouldn't stand there and swing for 20 minutes either. I'd lose my focus, right? But if you take it and you just kind of get like a 1, 2, I got a weight in my hand, I think it's about right, and let it go. That's about enough time to be able to feel the weight and feel the distance without losing your focus, okay? But whatever you do, whether it's 3 strokes or 4, do it the same every time. Don't do 3 sometime and 8 one time. Doesn't work. If you do too many strokes, there's usually a reason. Usually you're not confident in the shot and you're doing it thinking that, I'm going to get confident as I stroke. No. Take your time when you're going to aim a shot. The biggest amount of time you take is looking at it from a distance, walking into it, and getting yourself set. Once you're there, you're pretty much set. Now all you're going to do is stroke for speed, decide what speed you're going to hit the ball, okay, or what English you're going to use. I generally say if you're going to break down a shot, you should break it down into 3 elements and never do 2 elements at the same time. I look at a shot, we're going to do a couple things with position here in a second. I didn't forget that, Charlie. I will get back to it. That when you're playing a shot, you want to look at your shot, decide what English you're going to use, decide where you want to hopefully get from that English, and make that decision and be done with it. Don't think about it again. Right or wrong, be solid with that decision. The next thing you want to do if you're going to shoot a shot is you step back, make sure you're looking, and always do step back from your shot and walk in. Because that way you get your feet in the right position. That way this arm is hanging at the angle you need to have it hanging relaxed to be able to swing it straight without having to steer it. Okay? It's the biggest amount of time that happens on a shot. Getting that, and then come into your shot, making sure you're making your shot. Okay? Once you're there, then you want to stroke for speed. 1, 2, 3. So you have an idea of where your ball is going to go. But the biggest thing about that is if you're only thinking of one thing at a time, it's way easier to keep your focus. If you get down over a ball and you're second guessing, well, I should use right-hand English, maybe I should play tape on that one and not this, what do you end up doing? You end up missing the shot. Basically, not because you would have missed it otherwise, because your focus drifted. You know, my wife, who's not here today, unfortunately, would tell you, if he has to think of 2 things at once, he's lost. If you add gum to this equation, I couldn't make a ball in a lifetime. I'm a one thing at a time type of person. And she would tell you that. I'm not a multitasker. Some of you may be terrific at it. Well, leave that at home on your computer or your business or whatever. When you come to pool, break it down to 1, 2, 3, and you'll be a lot more successful. Okay?
Question, Calvin?
Yeah.
I'm down there, I'm about to make the shot, it just doesn't feel right. How far do you back away from it?
Okay. Yeah, you always need to completely regroup. One of the biggest disciplines that most players won't do, and a lot of times it's ego gets in the way. I'm not saying that's your case, Charlie. But what happens is you get over a ball and you just don't feel right about it, but you shoot it anyway because it should be right. No. If you get over a ball and it doesn't feel right, 9 times out of 10, it's not right. There's something wrong. So what I would suggest, if you get over a ball and you just don't feel right, back completely out of the shot and just start everything all over. If you're not going to change the English, you don't have to think about that. But if you, as far as the shot making is concerned, I can't tell you how many times, especially like on break balls playing straight pool, I get over a shot and it just doesn't feel right. I will always regroup, step back, walk in. Very rarely do I miss that shot if I've taken my time to do that. But believe me, the one thing you don't want to do is miss a key shot, do you? You want to take enough time and give it every effort that you can. Once you feel comfortable with it and you stroke, if you feel you're going to make it and you feel it with confidence, guess what? You're a lot better player than even you know you are when you feel good about a shot. There's times we get over shots that are so difficult that we think, wow, that's really not a very high percentage shot, but for some reason it just feels good right now. Goes every single time. You know, our mind's a very strong thing. It can either work for us or work against us. But if you make your decisions and stick to your decision and feel solid about them, most of the time it's going to work out. Okay?
Have you ever changed your routine like I see now? You're 1, 2, go 1, 3. Over the years and so forth in your professional career, have you changed that?
There's only a certain time, and I've learned little tricks about certain types of shots.
Yeah.
A lot of the times when I'm playing straight pool, you'll get your opponent will play a safety in the very beginning. He'll leave your cue ball way the heck down here, and he'll leave you a shot like that. Okay, well, nobody looks forward to it. But if you're playing straight pool against the caliber player I play, if I don't make that, I might not get back to the table, you know, because these guys can run 100 balls. So the one thing I don't want to do is shoot that ball in any other way than the best way I think I can just pocket that ball. But if I get back and I take my bunch of strokes like this and shoot that ball, my tendency is to pull it a little bit when it's that far away. I will do one thing, I will get down over the ball like this a lot of times and just make sure my feet are right and just shoot it sometimes on just one stroke like that because I feel more confident that I can make a shot like that. But, you know, it's just a rare time that I change my routine ever. If I'm
just on the tougher shots, right?
No. That's what I didn't want to say. It's just on that specific type of a shot. those long shots, first shot out of the gate.
Yeah, I
But
would
if-
consider that a tougher shot, though.
Yeah, well,
For most
but
of it.
most of the time, if it's a tougher shot, I'm in the middle of my rhythm, I'll do it the same exact way.
okay.
It's just a little trick I've learned that helps me make those kind of shots.
You have a feel for it then, right? When you need to make an adjustment.
Yeah, I tried to find a way that made that shot more often for me. And what I had to do is just
Okay.
make a smaller backstroke and just isolate just the one small movement, you know.
So that's
But
an individual thing, right?
that's an
For all-
individual thing, probably
Okay.
something you'll never have to encounter. So I would say if you're practicing what we're trying to learn today from the beginning or intermediate level, get yourself into the same
Okay.
routine every single
Yeah.
time. But yeah, you'll never see me stroke the ball 4 times. You'll always see me stroke the ball 3 times. Okay, yeah. Any questions about that? Okay. All right, so we've gone over the stroke, we've gone over the bridges. The only thing we haven't gone over so far is the English. So we're going to do that first, and then we're going to segue to the part that we had mentioned earlier to get the cue ball to go certain places. Charlie came up with a really interesting little routine that he wants me to do. And he said, all you got to do is just cheat the pocket. I was going, Charlie, that's hard to do. All right, but let's start with the basic Englishes, all right? What you're going to do is if you want this ball to follow, if you want it to go forward after you hit this ball. How many of you play tennis or did play tennis? Okay. Well, how do you put topspin on a tennis ball? Hit it kind of over the top, right? Well, the same thing's kind of true with pool. You're just not having to create the motion with your arm this way. You're going to hit this ball above the center. And you generally don't need to hit it all the way up to the very, very tip top of the ball. What you want to do is you just want to make sure the angle of your cue, here's parallel, slightly goes up. Okay? And of course you do have to hit here's the center of the ball. I want to hit it about right there. That's about maybe a tip and a half above center. But I'm not way up at the top, because that's not hitting the ball solid. Still want to hit it solid. If you raise it up just a little bit, that'll put an upward angle on the cue ball, and when you shoot it, it'll follow forward. Hopefully you wouldn't shoot it on a shot like that because you don't want to scratch, but that just shows you what the ball does if you put topspin on it. Okay? If you want to make the ball stop, meaning and you can only make a ball stop dead in its tracks if the shot itself is straight. If you've got an angle, it's going to slightly deflect. If I shoot a shot like that with a stop stroke, it's going to deflect that way if it's got a little angle going this way. You can throw some spin on it and hold it a little bit tighter, but basically it's going to deflect. If you cut it to the right, it'll deflect to the left. But if it's straight, what you want to do with the cue ball is you want to hit it 1 full tip below center. Okay? Here's the center of the ball. I'm going to go 1 tip lower than that. And see how I did it? Just by spreading my fingers out a little bit. 1 tip below center. You get a nice smooth stroke on that and follow through. The ball stays right where the other ball was. Okay? The nice thing about that is my position is guaranteed. If I stop that ball, I know exactly where my next shot's coming from. So it is the best shot you have to be able to control your cue ball. And sometimes if you look at little patterns, I'm going to show you one just for the heck of it here. You look at little patterns like this, you can limit how far you roll. You know, if you have 3 shots like this, if you can really make the ball stop, you can utilize that by going stop. Oh, I didn't get it straight. Stop. Stop. See? I mean, if you look at your angles like that, you can kind of see ways where that cue ball doesn't have to roll at all. And that's nice, because then, you know, there's no chance of it rolling forward or rolling back and not going the right distance. Stopping is the best thing you can possibly do to know where your cue ball is going to be. All right? So 1 tip below makes the ball stop. How do we make the ball back up? Well, we already did that a little earlier because we covered the draw, but I'll show it to you again. You're going to hit the ball 2 tips below center or 1 tip up from the surface itself. That's against the table surface, so I'm going to lift it up about 1 tip above that. Okay? And they still follow through the same way. And the ball comes back, draws back. Okay? Yes, sir.
Do you accelerate through that ball when you hit a
No.
draw?
Well, you have to hit the ball with a little more speed than you would to stop it, yes, but you're not going to go slow, fast. Okay? Depending on what you want to do, because most of the time when we want to draw the ball, we don't just want to draw the ball, we want to draw it to a certain place. So if let's say I want to make this ball and say draw it back to where my chalk is there, I would hit it with a certain rhythm. 1, 2, 3 to hopefully make it go back there. If I come up a little bit short, then I would know I'd have to increase that rhythm a little bit more to bring it back. I would know that the next time to get the speed down, I have to go a little bit faster pace. And so you got a little closer that time. Okay, it's a little faster yet, right? But every single time you see it's still got a rhythm to it. 1, 2, okay. And there we got back to where I really kind of wanted to go. But it always has a rhythm to it. You never want to go slow, slow, fast, because that will make you tense up. Anytime you tense up, you can't feel distance. It's very difficult to feel distance that way. Okay? Okay, well, what has to happen with this shot to get to, let's say, here? I'm going to follow it and hit the rail here and come over here to the left. So I've got two choices. I can cheat the pocket a little bit to make an angle to get there, or I could play this with high left-hand spin and make it go over here. But basically what you want to try to do is get a nice rhythm on it. 1, 2, 3, and have it roll over that direction. Okay, come on, ball. Come on, ball. Okay, so you see if that one was with no spin at all. So we'll do the same exact shot, and I'll add a little bit of spin this time. 1, 2. And it rolls over in the paper, okay? So we take this one here, it's the same shot. Now we want to get to that end. Well, with very little angle, I'm going to have to kind of force this ball over, and I would use really kind of center cue ball here. Slightly cheat the angle, because the center cue ball gives you a right angle.
Wow.
Slides over there and goes onto that paper. Come on, get there. Well, it got there.
Close enough.
Okay?
No draw?
Huh?
No draw? on
Just
that?
stop. Just center cue ball, because I want a right angle. You could draw it. You could draw it and come off the rail and still probably get in that window. But it's easier just to play it with center cue ball. Okay? We're going to go to this one. Obviously, same thing, only go in the other direction. Coming up short every single time. I shot. A little more speed. I was scratching earlier. That's why I was trying to avoid doing that. But go in the right direction to get to that particular spot. You go over to this one, high, maybe a little bit on the right hand side. To go over there. Okay? To go to that side. Now, you can take this shot, and you can get to these spots a lot of different ways, though. You could take a long trip and end up in this one by hitting this ball with a little left-hand English and going 1, 2, 3 rails and coming around.
Oh my gosh.
He didn't mean you literally.
I do better when I travel long distance. All right, and the same thing's true around the other side. Come on now, get in there. There it is. All right. Now, getting back to these from this particular angle, the way I played it before would have been by far the easiest. Otherwise, you would have to travel an extremely long distance. But what you could do is we already just learned how to draw the ball. You could slightly cheat the pocket that way. I hope I can do this. And you could draw the ball back there and get in that window.
Did stop.
Yeah.
See that thing stop?
Okay?
When you're putting English on the cue ball,
Mhm.
you're aiming for the center of the object ball?
Only if the shot's straight.
Only if the shot is straight.
What if it isn't straight?
Well,
What
then
do
you have to hit
do?
the target of wherever that spot happens to be. In this case, I have a shot that is straight, and I'm having to make it an angle to be able to get around the table. Because we already saw when I was shooting this ball straight, it was either going in that pocket or in this pocket, right? So I've got to somehow get to a cushion and bring the ball that way to get there. So, if you look at a shot, no matter what the shot is, let's say you're playing that shot. If you come around, you aim your ball straight in the pocket, and you back up to where the center of the cue ball is going to make contact with that shot to drive it there. You can always walk that stick around to the middle of the cue ball here, and that tells you where to aim.
Oh.
So in this case, you're aiming at that spot, aiming at the edge. So if I hit the center of this ball on the edge of that ball, that shot's going to go.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, so that's just a basic ghost ball aiming system, which is the one I've always used. So there's a lot of times you get shots that are kind of odd-looking shots for whatever reason. Well, if you're not sure, come around and aim it in the middle of the pocket, always back up to where the center of the cue ball would be, which is about 3/4 of an inch to an inch off the ball. Come around and find your target. Then you don't have to do anything other than know that's where the target is and just hit it there. So you don't have to guess at that target.
Yeah.
Okay? But that's your basic shot making technique. And and the thing is, if you'd rather know where to hit than to be guessing at where to hit. And I will tell you, to this day, when I get in tournaments, there's certain shots that bug me, that I'm just not used to. One of them is like, say I had to cut this ball in the side pocket. It's not normally a side pocket shot. It's normally a corner pocket shot. But let's say that pocket's not available. Something's blocking it. I will, in a major tournament, I will come around here and do this and do this. And you know why I'm not embarrassed? Because the point is, if that ball goes in, hopefully that ball won't go in, but if that ball goes in, I did what I needed to do to make that shot. And I will ever not shoot a shot and give myself the best chance to make a shot if it's important.
Has anybody ever complained about you marking the table with the cue stick? Has
No.
anybody ever complained about
No, there is no rule or in any rule book that I've ever found that doesn't allow you to mark the table. But you can't stand there, you can't have a friend say hit here, you know, that doesn't work. But if I want a shot, let's say for instance I'm trying to hit a small window, I've got a ball, let's say over here, and I want to shoot this ball next, and for some reason I've got other balls kind of blocking that window, it'd be better right from here. So I needed to roll into this spot right there, right? But it's kind of hard to see from there where that is from this angle. So a lot of times I'll come around, I'll just shoot my shot, walk around the table and set up on my next ball, and he won't realize I just marked it with the chalk.
Oh yeah, I got you.
So, you know, now I know I just have to shoot that ball and roll to that chalk, and I know I can see that ball. So do I cheat now and then? But yes, but you know, I've never had anybody ever say a word about that, because they don't know I wasn't just setting that chalk down.
Exactly.
But you have to be sneaky.
What's that?
You have to be sneaky.
They know
You don't have to be sneaky. Like I said, there's no rule that says you can't do it.
So, okay.
But, you know, most of the time, that's not going to be the case. It comes up a lot, too, when you're trying to, when you're trying to kick at balls, when you're hooked and you can't see a shot, and you're trying to see the angle. I will go into all kinds of measuring. You know, if I'm looking at a shot, let's say I'm hooked on the 5 ball, and I'm playing 8 ball, and I'm way down here or something like this. I go through a whole system to know how to hit that ball, you know, which we won't cover today, we won't have time, but if I come around here, what I do is I go from the middle of this pocket to that ball right there, and I look at it and it goes to this diamond. I'll come over to this diamond here, aim this at the side pocket, and I'll step over parallel to the middle of the cue ball. That way I know if I shoot at that angle, I'll hit that ball. Wow. Okay? So that's just a system to learn how to divide the table in half. Normally when you're playing position, the times that you worry more about scratching usually is a 9 ball more than 8 ball because you're traveling the cue ball so much more. And you have to get on a specific ball. So when I'm playing a path to get to a ball, for instance, and there's a lot of different ways to get there. Like in 9 ball, you have to shoot the balls in sequence, right? You got to get a higher number ball than a 5. There we go. Say I was going to get from the 5 to the 6, right? I wouldn't want to shoot this. I know I've got to get down to this end of the table, but I wouldn't want to shoot it where the natural angle of coming off the rail was going towards this pocket, because if I didn't hit it at the right speed, I could scratch. I would try to find the biggest window possible to get to my next ball without scratching. So in this case, what I would do is if I come off this rail, I actually want to come in like this to this ball, because I can make this ball once I cross this line. And if it goes here and goes here and goes here, I got all that distance to get position on that ball. So the only way that I can do that consistently is if I know the angle this cue ball is going to deflect off of that object ball. In this case, it's a perfect angle because the center cue ball comes off at a right angle. So watch what happens. If I hit that cue ball in the center, center, slides into here, and then no matter where it stops along the way, I got a shot at this ball. See, that's the whole reason you would shoot it that way. If I played that same shot with high English, I might get there, but look at how dangerous it is.
Possible scratch.
See?
Wow.
I'm pretty good at doing it on purpose, huh? But that's the thing you want to avoid. And you can avoid that usually by where you hit the cue ball, which changes your angle of deflection. Now I could have played that same shot with high English and maybe added a little bit of right-hand English to it, which would have got me around the corner a little sharper and allow me to slide into that ball, but not get anywhere near this pocket.
But you're thinking of this, though.
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I mean, you want to give yourself the biggest margin and the safest trip anytime you travel from one ball to the other. Because that way you can make a mistake and still be okay. Okay?
Calvin has generously agreed to stay over another half hour until noon and answer individual questions or talk pool or show you the cues individually. Anything you'd like to do. Appreciate that, Calvin.
And also, if anyone decides that they would like to get together and work on anything on a one-on-one basis or in a small group, I told Charlie, he can explain to you how that works. Do you want to do that now, or do you
Yes, I
want
was going to do that now.
to? Okay, all right.
Really seeing 15 shots? Or is he just hitting one and hoping? Is he seeing 4 shots? So I've asked him this time to give a stream of consciousness. What he's thinking as he's doing this. So before each shot, he will tell you how he's going to shoot it and what he's trying to do with the next shot. I think it'd be very illuminating to put yourself in his mind and see how a real pro does it. So with that, let's have Calvin get started with his
Okay, thank you all very much. Thank you so much. And let's give Charlie a hand for putting this together and allowing this to happen. I appreciate that. So he basically was explaining to you that there is obviously a pattern that you try to have with a certain rack of balls. And as I mentioned earlier, I always try to make sure that I don't corner myself by only playing position on one ball, if at all possible, just because if you sometimes make a mistake and you run out with no shots, and we've all done this, most of the time that running the balls is more difficult for people because they do that, and they don't allow themselves to stay kind of in the middle of several balls to give themselves several options. It allows you to not have so many difficult shots and to not travel the cue ball usually any more than necessary. Because when you're playing 8-ball, which is what most of you play, I guess, how many of you 8-ball is your primary game? Okay, well maybe more, half of you play 9-ball as your primary. 9-ball? Who's 9-ball is your primary game? Okay, well so it is close to half. So, but anyway, when it comes to 8-ball, it's a little different animal since you're playing position on several possibilities. You usually want to stay in the middle of those possibilities. Like, let's say, for instance, I was going to start this rack by shooting either the 9-ball or the 13, which would probably be one of my first shots. If I were to take, I just took that pocket away from myself, I moved that ball. If I were to take the 13 ball right now, that puts me in the middle of what I call a triangle. If I'm here and my cue ball ends up stopping or staying right in this area, I've got this ball, and this ball as a potential shot. So when you're doing that, that gives me a chance to, if I roll a little too far, a little bit too little, one of those balls is going to look better than the other, so it gives me more options. Now, if I'm looking at trouble balls here, the only trouble ball I would say if I took stripes would probably be going down and getting this 14, and possibly getting this ball out of the way or this ball out of the way, because this only has one pocket that seems the obvious here, because this pocket is blocked by the 11. So what I would do here is I would probably play this ball with a little bit of top English and roll forward a little on this ball, trying to get, I've got this ball and this ball and this ball to shoot, but really trying to get on the 10, because the 10, if I can stop my ball in this general area, will take me to this, because I'll be straight in on it, and then I've got an angle on this to get myself back to the middle again. So that's what I would do here. I'm going to play this 10 ball with a stop stroke, hold my cue ball in that general. That's like one tip below center, and stop it right there. That way I know where my cue ball is going to be for my next shot. Now even though this triangle is still increased, I've still, that, and anytime you've got a ball that you can stop your cue ball, that's the only exception to playing position on several balls. Because if you know exactly where your ball is going to be, there's very little chance that you're not going to have your shot that you want for your next one. Now when I come back and shoot this ball now, and kind of stay in this area, I will have this ball as a backup ball, and if I were to decide to roll forward, I could actually have all 3. But since I want to take the 11 ball next, in my favorite pocket, I'm just going to stay close to it, so I make sure I make the ball. All right, so now in this case, I'm going to have do one stroke here, if I can, to bring this ball hopefully from here. It's almost straight in. I need to force it into the rail and get off the rail again, because my 15 is probably going to be my next shot. Now, if I wanted to keep multiple shots here, I would shoot this and stop it now, shoot this, and maybe go get this and come back to this ball. But that would force me to possibly shoot this ball from a longer distance and have to get on the 8, and it's not a very good angle. The ideal ball I'd like to shoot last, if at all possible, might be this ball, or possibly this one, because here's where I'd like to end up at the end to shoot my 8-ball. And if I can get straight on this one, I can just pretty much stop it or pull it back to get there. But here's the one I've got to make sure I make. Okay, I hit it a little too hard, but that's okay. It actually worked out pretty well because I got myself 2 potential shots there. And so under the circumstances, because I played back to the triangle, all 3 of these balls are pocketable from here, but this one and this one obviously would be the 2 easier ones. But now I'm getting towards the end of my rack, so I'm going to think about seriously trying to get position on both of these balls. In this shot right here, you can see I've got quite a bit of angle on this. My cue ball is going to want to roll into here. Okay? What I don't want it to have is roll up against and get frozen on that 6-ball. So here would be the first time I'm going to use side English. I'm going to use a little bit of left-hand English. If you hit the cue ball on the left, when it hits this rail, instead of coming off at the natural angle, the left-hand English will make the ball come off a little more to the left. That should keep me from getting behind this 6-ball. And it does. So now I have both of these balls as possibilities to shoot now, pretty much in the middle of both of them. Now the reason I'm not going to take this one first is because this one slightly angles with a cue ball going this direction, and I don't want to end up way down there to shoot this one. So it makes more sense to take the 14 now, because the cue ball with just natural English will come off this rail and come back out in this area and should allow me a pretty good shot on this 15. Okay? And that's
that
where
was really delicate.
Yeah. I didn't say they were all easy, Charlie. All right, so now in this case, I've got a little bit of an angle here. I've got to hit this ball in really soft because I don't want to roll past my shot. I do right in here's where I would want to be. So if you're going to hit a ball really easy, you want to take a really slow stroke. Shoot it again, you'll probably see it rolled over, rotated right over the top that time. I was getting into that, I'm sorry. All right, we're going to go ahead and do the solids this time. I'm going to just play this one and just roll out to the middle of the table because there's all kinds of balls out here. If I get in the center of stuff, I'll probably have a lot more options. So, okay, in this case, I've got a good shot at the 3, 2, 4, and 6, but the 6 ball is the one that puts me in the middle of 2 more. So I'm going to play with no English again, just natural English, make the ball come out to the middle. If I roll a little too far, further than I really wanted to, it's nice because I do have my backup ball there. Now, I might not shoot that ball just for the sheer reason that in the situation I got right there, I got a little bit jacked up over that ball. You can see, I'd have to shoot over the ball. I normally wouldn't do that if I can avoid it. So in this case, I'm going to break out this lovely little tool. And let's hope the ball separate nicely here. Cut this ball in softly. Come on, ball, roll straight for me. To get back in the middle. I'm making myself work today. I'm a little bit out of line again. Okay. Well, the one thing you want to do is if you find yourself a little out of line, you want to try to only do it once, if at all possible. Now, I've got 2 shots here, 3 shots actually with the 7 that are makeable, none of which are easy, but I don't want a bunch of tough shots. So if you're in a situation like this, you ideally want to get one of these balls and hopefully get yourself back in line so you don't end up with a lot of tough shots. And they're about the same difficulty with the 3 ball and the 4 ball. I'm trying to decide here. Yeah, I think I might like the 3 a little bit better. So I'm going to, in this case, I have to kind of play position on one ball. I could draw this ball a little bit and come out this way, but it really wouldn't put me perfect on anything. If I can just make this ball and come over here, this ball should take me to this ball, and then I just have to get shape on the 1 to get back to the 8. Okay, gotta focus here. Focus, focus. Be nice. Okay.
Famous 2 rail shots.
Yep, and just slow roll this ball. Please roll straight for me. Come up on the 7. I'm going to have to make a shot on the 1 ball, huh? Again, just natural English, roll forward. Okay. And if you get a long shot, jeez, I got dead straight in. If you get a long shot like this, the best thing to do is don't try to complicate it by doing too much with your cue ball. Unfortunately, I am going to have a long shot on the 8, but all I'm going to do is stop this ball. Get on the rail. No pressure, no pressure whatsoever. This is what Charlie would hope that I would get as my last shot. And if you get a ball on the rail and you get a ball that far away, please don't do anything but just make it. Don't concentrate on anything else. Stay down when you shoot. I missed it. I missed it. See, I talked myself out of that. Anyway. But it gave you a little idea of how to get from ball to ball. Not a very good idea, but it got you from ball to ball again. So.
I think that was very illuminating.
Okay. Let's, I'm going to do one a lot faster this time, just to show you it actually can be done. And then we'll go on to our next thing. I'm just going to shoot it a little faster this time without describing. Now I put myself in kind of a strange position to start with, but that's okay.
You're going to do the stripes and then the solids?
Yeah, I'm thinking about it. That's gonna help. Like my charcoal.
Sounds like Charlie. This is
Hi, baby. Did I? Thank you. I'm glad you were pulling for me. I was too. Okay, there's the stripes. I would take the apex and play position on the 8, but we'll switch over and take the solids now. Oh, don't do that. Don't do that. Like I said, don't do that.
See? He's almost human.
That can happen. That can happen.
We'll delete that part too.
Yeah, you do have an editing thing on that, correct? Let's make sure that's true. We all want to be able to do that today, right? That's part of what we're going to do?
Right.
Okay. Let's shoot a few stops and draws here while we go. Jesus, just began.
Looks like you just sit on the low left of the cube.
You know what? I've had more people tell me that, and it's funny because if you take it, where's the pocket? There we go. I've been at this now for about 40-something years, and I've never been able to fool this ball yet. Whatever I put on that cue ball, that's what it's going to do. Okay. Okay, so all of those are variations on the original rules.
And a few diehards play straight pool.
And diehards like me play straight pool. I know, that's the game I like the best too. All right, so when you're breaking 8-ball, there's 2 things you want to accomplish. You want to hopefully make a ball. That's important because you want your turn. And you want to get these balls as fanned out around the table as possible. And that does take some power to do that. But more than power, and I'll tell you this, especially for those that maybe don't have the strength they once had, accuracy is more important than power. You need both to be able to really splatter the balls. But you will get a lot more open balls if you hit that front ball straight. And a good way to practice it, I shouldn't have racked these first, a good way to practice it is just put one ball up there. Just one ball. Yeah, you know what, I do want to show this before I go on. This is good for 9-ball or 8-ball. Put the front ball up, because how you strike that front ball is the most important thing in having a good break. So wherever you break along this line, and if you watch the professionals play 8-ball, they generally break about a foot off center one way or the other. Sometimes you'll see people way over on the side shooting into the front ball, almost hitting the second ball in the line. But that's more on a bar table, you'll see that, because the angle changes. If this table were only 7 feet long, it would end right here. So you would then be breaking from like right here, so you're coming into that angle in a straight line. when you have to get back here behind the line and you're shooting and trying to get between those two balls, you're hitting kind of a glancing blow, so you're not going to get as much success. So what I do when I break 8-ball is I try to break with a pretty much level cue, hitting the cue ball dead center. Now, when you've got a mass of 15 balls like that, that mass, if you hit it that square, will push that cue ball back to the center here. And that's the ideal place you want to be. Because if your cue ball ends up somewhere between these two side pockets, and you break balls all over the table, you have 6 potential pockets to make your first shot in. If you break the balls, and say with high English, what ends up usually happening is the balls stay in that area, cue ball follows in there. A lot of times, you may make a ball, but all of your balls will be at that end of the table, which makes it a lot tougher to find an open pocket for all the balls. Something's going to be tied up a lot more often. So, in this case, center cue ball, if I get this shot, ideally if I hit this ball absolutely square, I won't hit it full speed because I don't want it to fly off the table. But see how the ball went off to the side there? That's what you don't want to have happen, because that means I didn't hit the front ball square, okay? If I do break the balls and hit it correctly, I'll try to concentrate this time to do that. Cue ball should stay right there when you hit it, you see? Now, I hit that ball center cue ball and it still stopped because of the speed that I played. So you can practice that to get used to hitting that front ball. Because when all these balls are up here, it's really easy to get distracted by all the colors and all the stuff going on to not be able to do that. But if you practice with one ball, that way you don't have to sit there and re-rack the balls over and over and over again. You can still practice hitting the ball square. All right, so I am
Would
going
you
to...
suggest using the rail, as you shoot off?
You mean like back here?
Yeah.
Well, here's the problem with that. I mean, yes, a lot of you maybe that have trouble making bridges, if your hands are not real solid, that's an option. And it sometimes can make it more solid for you. But if you have a good bridge, especially a good closed bridge, the further you are away from that front ball, the harder it is to hit it straight. As you all know, that's why long shots are harder to make than short shots. Yes, sir?
Are you focusing both on the cue and the red ball at the same time?
You mean what am I looking at?
Yeah.
You know what? When you do this, one of our biggest problems when people break is they have a tendency to pop up to try to see what they've done in the middle of the shot. I actually try to keep my head down and concentrate more on the cue ball just on the break. Now, this is not on making shots, so don't confuse it with that. Just on the break, because you want to make sure you stay down and finish your follow-through to get full power. So most of this shot I do, that's a good question to have ahead of time, is I will try to prep my feet to make sure when I come into the shot that I'm hitting that ball dead square. So I'm going to hit this flat and hit it straight. I don't know if we'll make a ball as much, but we'll probably get more separation. Okay. Yeah, a little bit more. I used a little more power that time. Again, both times my cue ball came out to here and got bumped to where it is right now. If it doesn't get bumped, it was right about there before it got bumped.
And there's nothing left in the rack.
And there's nothing left in the rack. Yes, yes, sir.
Is there any advantage of using a 15 ounce rather than anything else?
On the break?
On the
15
break?
on what?
On the break.
He's talking about a stick?
The
A light
stick.
cue versus a
The
heavy.
weight.
Well, 15 ounces is way light. It's way too light, yeah. Some of the players on tour, especially the 9-ball players, because the break is such a huge factor in 9-ball, they use a little bit lighter cue than they play with, or at least lighter cue than is normal. Like I play with a cue that's about a 20. That's what I personally play with. Most of the players on tour that have break cues, and they usually have like the phenolic tips, because it'll hit the balls a little harder, and they're specially made to be really stiff, to hit the balls with a little bit more power. What they end up doing is using about a 19-ounce cue, which is really only like an ounce lighter than standard. And that's usually enough of a lightness to be able to get full power on the shot. I played a tournament last year in Las Vegas, the APA Masters, and I played a gentleman on one of the teams. Actually, his team won the whole tournament. But he played against our team, and he was my match. He was the match I had to play against, so I got to play against the guy that had the fastest break at that tournament. They have a competition every year. And he broke his at something like 22 miles an hour or something like that, which sounds like it's not very much, right?
Okay.
But it's faster than Johnny Archer breaks them. So, it's pretty amazing. And we were playing on a bar table. So if you hit the balls 22 miles an hour on a bar table, you make some balls. So I was lucky because he was young and he didn't know how to play safety very well, and that's how I managed to win my match, but unfortunately my team didn't win. Okay, but that's something. 22 miles an hour is just incredibly hard. So, all right, so in this search, we're going to go into a 9-ball break. Now, 9-ball break's a little bit different because you're trying to do two things. You're trying to make a ball, and you're trying to get a shot at the ball you need to get, okay? There are a lot of players that break almost exclusively from the side. You know, I do on most tables if I absolutely have to make a ball. This table is a little bit on the slower side, so because of that, I would break from the side because I've got a better chance of making a ball. But normally, if my break is really working well, I will go back to that same spot I broke in 8-ball because I still pocket balls and I can control the white ball a little bit better. Because from the side, when you hit this, even if you hit it perfectly straight, you got to be real careful not to scratch on the side. Because if you hit it just a 16th or 32nd of an inch to the left of center, it can go right in that hole. Okay, so you don't want to scratch because that's a huge disadvantage in 9-ball to give your opponent ball in hand. But what you want to try to do is make a ball. Ideally, the ball you want to make is this wing ball here. If I break from this side, I'm really trying to make the 5 in here. If I break from this spot over here, I'm really trying to make the 4 in here. Now, I may or may not get that to happen, but another thing that I'm trying to do too is you hit this ball at this angle from the side, it pushes this 1 ball into the 3, which then pushes it into the 8. It kind of goes around those balls, and it heads this direction. Now, some of the players, if you watch on TV, break the balls really softly. You might have seen that if you watch TV. Well, they use what's called a Sardo rack, which is a rack that just makes the balls even tighter than you can make manually. And a lot of the times, this 1 ball will go in the side, and they can predict that. The reason I don't like to use that break often is because of the fact that if you make the 1, you never know where the 2 ball is going to be, because they can rack the 2 ball anywhere else on the rack that they want to. So if I don't make the 1 and pocket another ball and don't hit it too hard where it goes in this pocket, it also hits over here and comes back down. So I pretty much hope that my ball ends up in this quadrant, the 1 ball, and if I keep my cue ball somewhere around the center of the table, my first shot should be about a 4-foot shot at the 1 ball. That's what we try to do. Yes, ma'am?
Do you have a special way of racking those balls for 9-ball?
Not really. The 1 has to go in the front and the 9 has to go in the middle. That's pretty much it, yeah.
All right, thanks.
You can rack them any way you want. Now, if I was playing in a tournament, I would always put the 2 ball in one of these back 2 slots. And it's not cheating, but what it does is it leaves usually the 2 and the 6 at this end of the table after the break. If it doesn't go in, it'll leave it at this end of the table. So if the 1 ball does end up back up here, and I, for some reason, don't make a ball on the break, my opponent's first shot is going to have to make the 1 ball and get back to the other end of the table to get to the 2. So it makes it a little tougher to run out. If I don't make the 1, then it doesn't matter because I've got my 1 ball here. So that helps. All right. So I'm going to try to concentrate on this. Now this particular one, there's where the center was. I'm going to go slightly below center on this one because I'm hitting a lighter mass with 9 balls. Okay, I hit that one pretty darn straight. Get in there, 7. I did everything I wanted to do except the 7 ball didn't fall in because these balls are close. This ball is in the quadrant I wanted. The cue ball I might have hit a little low because it looked like from the very get-go it got pushed straight back. But I did get this down where I wanted to, and I did, almost made a ball. Let's try one more break. But they did get separated pretty well. That ball a little bit higher than I did it, just by the way the ball reacted. Now, I really suggest when you break, if you break especially from the rail like I'm breaking, you really concentrate on staying down. Don't try to look up and see what you've done. I'll really concentrate this time on keeping my head down when I break. You'll see what I'm talking about. Okay, I kept my head down, made a ball, almost got the 1 back to this quadrant. Again, the cue ball got bumped originally, but see, this is what happens, unfortunately, when you're playing. You just never know where that 1 ball is going to get. You did everything you were supposed to do. You made a ball, got the 1 ball basically in the area you wanted it, and here comes that 7 ball to roll right in front of you. But that's just part of 9 ball. That's part of 9 ball. So it's just one of those breaks. But that's a pretty good break. If you ideally want to do in a 9 ball break, is get half the balls at this end of the table, half the balls at that end of the table, and a shot. I got everything but the shot part. But as you can see, there's a lot of distribution of the balls spanned around the table. Did pocket a ball.
You can't see that one ball?
Can't see it, 7 balls in the way. Yeah.
When you wind
I
up,
mean, if that ball were here, I pretty much like my chances of running out. It just needed to be about 2 inches to the left.
Would
Yes,
you
sir.
try a bank shot on that one?
Well, in 9-ball, you have 2 options with the rules on this. You can play what's called a push, which allows you to not even hit the 1 ball and roll the cue ball to a spot that you think your opponent might not be able to make it or would have a difficult time getting to their next ball, or a spot that you think they're going to give the shot back to you and you're going to play a safety that you know that they don't know. I learned one thing a long time ago. When you start playing professional players, they know everything you know. So don't leave them something. If you see an easy safety that you can play, they see it too. Generally, I found leaving a tough shot on a push is the best thing to do, and where the position is difficult as well. So I would probably, if it were me and I was going to shoot this shot, I'd do one of 2 things. I might actually go ahead and kick at this ball to try to get safe, because I can come into the rail here and come back and know I'm going to hit this ball. And ideally what I'd like to do is hit it down to that end of the table, because if I do, whatever I leave, my opponent's going to have to shoot next, and I'd be driving it away from the 2 ball. Let's just go ahead and do that and show you what I kind of had in mind here. Getting it down to the other end of the table, like that. Now I would rather do that than a push, because now all of a sudden my opponent's got a really difficult shot on the 1 and even more difficult time to get to the next one.
when you wind up with the 9-ball where it is, are you in the back of your mind thinking of a combination at any point?
Only if it's a lot better than this. Yeah, this is not a good situation. If that 1 ball were right here, yeah, I'd probably think about that. But you know, at this point in time, my opponent's either going to have to make a safety from here or a really good shot to get on that 2 ball and make the 1 at the same time. I would not play this shot. I would play a defensive shot if it were me in this situation. I would probably try to send this ball down here and leave him like that, up against that ball. I didn't do a very good job, but it's not a bad job. It's still a pretty darn tough shot out of this pocket to make that. I think he can see it, but he can't see the part he needs to make the ball. Ideally, this is what I wanted. Then he would have not liked me at all. Okay? But that's basically the break. Is what you want to try to do is you want to try to pocket a ball, get your cue ball somewhat in the center of the table. But I would suggest the first thing you do is practice with that individual ball. And you can practice your 9-ball break this way too, from whichever side. Because if you hit this ball square, that ball's not going to do this. It's not going to come to the side like that. You just have to really concentrate when you come into your ball, which I will do now. I'm hitting this ball dead straight, and that ball stays in that area. If you do that, then you're going to be like that shot. You're going to be pretty You're going to be pretty successful in getting your balls fanned out and making balls. Yes, sir.
Remember that shot.
Remember that shot. Yeah, you never know when that one might come in handy. Okay, let's go over the short list before we do the fundamentals. Charlie, what was one of the other things?
Okay, we were going to do a little demonstration on draw.
Okay, let's do that first. All right. So a draw shot, or a low English shot, one of the biggest mistakes that most people make with this is they try to angle their cues down too much, okay? And the ball goes flying. Has that happened to anybody? Hi, Charlie. We worked on it once, that's why I know. Okay, well, what you want to do, depending on, I will just tell you this, depending on the dexterity in your hands. I know I'm not as young as I once was, and for me to stretch my fingers the way I could when I was 20 is not as easy. But you need to get your cue stick low on the cue ball and try to hit the ball as flat as possible, meaning the cue as much as level as you can get it. It has to angle down a little bit to hit the ball as low as you want, but you don't want this kind of an angle. Because when you do that, if you forget a little chalk or whatever, you could definitely skip this ball. All right, so what I try to do is I take my closed bridge like this and fan my fingers out as much as I can stretch them. But you want to hit the cue ball. Here's the table surface, 1 tip up from the table surface. Now that's pretty low on the cue ball. But if you look at the angle, you can kind of see it from both sides. I'm not angling it down like this, am I? It's flatter. That way I can follow through and I'll get a lot more action on the ball. Okay? But the key is hitting it flat and being able to follow through. Now a lot of you may think that you need to snap it just to get out of the way, right? Well, you saw there, I stayed down until that shot was finished, and I had plenty of time to get out of the way. So you want, when you shoot this kind of a shot, you want to stay until you have to get out of the way, see, and then move. Because that way you finish your follow-through. Because there's some of us, you know, we get these longer draw shots, and the further you get away from the cue ball with the object ball, the harder it is. So if you're shooting and cutting down at the ball, your follow-through is ending up right here. Okay? I'm going to put this piece of chalk next to my cue ball here, and I want you to watch where the stick ends up after I hit this ball. See, that was about a foot past. But I got a lot of draw on the ball. I drew it from one end of the table to the other there. Okay? So if you follow through, you will get a lot more action on the ball. See, what I was talking about before is if you cut down at the shot and follow through, it's going to stop right there because it has to. It hits the clock. It has no place further to go. But the smoother you hit it with a level stroke like this, the more action you'll get on the ball, and you won't miss cue. Okay? But I really suggest that for any shot, not just draw. The one thing what you want to try to do, and we'll talk about this when we get a little more into the stroke and pocketing balls here a little bit later on. When you shoot a shot, you want the shots to be the same as much as you possibly can make them. The difference is, if you hit the cue ball in a different place, it's going to do a different thing after it makes contact. But the stroke part of the shot, whether you're hitting it high, low, middle, wherever, should pretty much be the same on every shot. You might increase the pace depending on the distance you want to travel, and obviously you're going to make the spot on the ball different if you want different English to happen. But other than that, you know, the stroke should pretty much look the same on all shots.
Two other things are the difference in cues and getting to anywhere on the table from the same starting position.
Okay, let's do the cues first. I'm going to bring the most expensive cue I brought today and the least expensive cue I brought today over here. If you have a pool cue, I suggest you have at least a case that is somewhat near the quality of the cue that you have. If you have a $50 pool cue, this case is fine for you. If you've got a $100 or more pool cue, you should get something at least in the $40 range as a case. Why is this better? For a start, if you put a cue in here, I don't know if you can see from this angle, there's like a little spring at the bottom of this case. And so it allows this to go in and out without sticking. Okay? This is vinyl. Leather is much less durable than vinyl. Vinyl is much more durable, so it actually is better. And what ends up happening is it's got a cork top at the top of this, so if you were to have it in your car and drop it or whatever, this kind of protects the joint of the cue, which is the one thing you don't want to have get hurt is the joint, because if the joint gets screwed up on the cue's really worthless. So got to be very careful of that. You know, obviously aesthetically is a lot nicer and just very well made. The inside of it is very solid and hard, so that's a better case. That's called a Giuseppe, if you want to know the maker. This is called a Bonsai. This is one that basically it's a very inexpensive little case that I got from one of the Taiwan makers. Basically, it's very, very soft. It's made of cardboard on the inside, but it still protects your case better than a soft case. It just doesn't have any kind of insulation like this one does. So that's a difference in the case.
Cost on those two?
What's that?
Cost?
This is about $40 and this is about $15. So. The cues that I brought today, this is a fairly well-known brand of the cues that are made not in the United States. This is, in my opinion, one of the best that you can buy for between $100 and $150. This is called a player cue. Now, if you look at this cue, I'll just show you guys this a little bit up front. That looks like an extremely expensive cue if you look at the workmanship and all the other things that go along with. You know, good. And the thing is, all of this inlay, looking like inlay, is all decal. This is all painted on, the whole thing. But that's why this cue is not $300. That's the reason. As far as the makeup of the cue, you have a stainless steel joint, which is the exact same joint as the cue I have here. The cue that I play with, it's a maker called a Casanova. And if you look at these two cues side by side, as far as the joint, pretty much interchangeable. They're almost exactly the same. This cue runs about $2,500, okay? It's a custom cue. All of this inlay here is truly inlaid. It's ebony that goes into bird's eye maple. All of the work around the joint, these little pieces of wood, you can kind of see them if you look close, are all hand inset one at a time, okay? And same thing here, same thing here, same thing here. It has a little piece at the bottom that looks like a pool table, which is also inlaid, and it has my initials in there. Isn't that nice?
How expensive can a cue stick
The
go?
most expensive cue I've ever seen was $52,000. That was the most expensive cue I've ever seen. There was a lot of ivory in it. There was actually a diamond inset down here in the bottom. There was 4 that were flush. Well, working with diamonds, you have to have a diamond cutter make that pretty much
Yeah, but
work.
was it a winning cue stick?
Well, it was made by a gentleman named Richard Black, who's out of Houston, Texas, and it was a cue that I saw at what's called a cue art show. So people brought all of the fanciest things that they made to this one show just to show what can be done. Nobody would play with it. It's too expensive to play with.
Kevin, does any of the marble, the inlays and so forth, what makes the cue very expensive,
Yeah.
does any of that make it more playable?
No,
None of it?
absolutely not. No.
Not even the balance, weight, nothing?
No, the type of wood makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
The joint of the cue makes a big difference. The wood being aged properly makes a huge difference in the way the cue plays. The ferrule and tip can be huge. Even on this inexpensive cue, this is a soft fiber ferrule. The only thing that's more expensive that you could get with this would be ivory. They do make ivory ones. They also make what's called a micarta, which is like an elk horn, which is more expensive. This tip, this is a standard LayPro tip on this particular cue. What's on mine is called a Moray tip. The tip alone, if you were to buy it in a store, not even put on, just buy the tip, is about $30 or $40 for the tip itself. But I've had this tip on this cue for 2 years and I play every day almost. And it looks brand new. So they'll last a long, long time. And they keep their shape. You never have to shape this tip.
So it's a Moray
What's the
hard.
best
Moray,
quality?
Is that
medium
Moray-
hard. Medium hard. I'm sorry.
Does that
what?
Moray have about 12 or layers or so?
Yes. Yes. All the more expensive tips have layers. The two most popular ones right now are Moray and Kamui. There's 2 tips. Kamui is a really dark chocolate brown, and those are about the same price.
And both Japanese, of course. Huh?
Actually, both tips are both tips are made there. Yeah. But
Can
that-
you have
yes.
an expensive tip on a reasonable?
Absolutely, and it'll make a big difference. It will. The ferrules can make a big difference. If you have a cheap ferrule, the plastic is hard, and they make a lot of inexpensive cues that have a real hard. There's some that have screw-in tips. You've probably seen them that screw in at the top. They're usually on things like Budweiser cues and things you might see in a swap meet. Okay, well, number one, you're hitting through a piece of plastic, so how could the cue hit? It's one of those things. But if you've got a tip, it should have a nice soft fiber ferrule or ivory micarta if you want to go up into a more expensive, and it should have some sort of a layered tip. Then at least the cue, no matter how expensive you spend money on the cue, the tip will play equivalent to the cue itself.
What about the quality of the wood itself?
Okay, well, I'm going to get into that. We talked about tips and ferrules. So basically, a cue like the one I have here that runs $2,500, most of this is because everything is done on a lathe, just like any other cue, but all of this stuff is done by hand. All this little intricate work is done by hand. A cue stick, for a cue maker that works on a cue every day, number one, it has to go through stages if you're talking an expensive cue, because things have to dry and have to be set and sanded and finished and all that stuff. A cue of this nature probably would take 6 to 8 weeks to make in total, because you have to do it in stages, okay? Whereas when you talk about cues like the one that I have here, it's still a maple as far as the wood here. It is, it looks like ebony, but it's not. This particular cue that's the next step up actually is ebony, and the inlay is actual inlay, but it's not as fancy or intricate as something like this. So beyond a certain point, you're going to be paying for, as this gentleman said earlier, the workmanship that goes into the cue or the extra detail. That's where the price goes up. you know, you do that when you buy furniture. You know, if there's a lot of inlay or things that are done, anything other than by hand, if it's done by hand, it's going to cost you more money. And the same thing true with a pool cue. But let's talk about the playability of it. This particular cue, because it has a good joint, because it has a good ferrule and a good tip, even though this is all decal work, you're the only person that's probably going to know that. I mean, it looks to me, if I saw this cue and it had this amount of inlay work done and it was not decaled on here, this cue would be well over $1,000 just from its appearance. But the point is, it is decaled on there, and all of the materials that make up the hit of the cue, including the wrap. This wrap right here is Irish linen. I'll bring mine over, and you can put those side by side. Other than mine's a lot dirtier because it's about 15 years old, it's pretty much the same. Yeah. Mine looked more like this when I first got it than it looks like it does now. Just because, you know, soil from your hands and things like that. And there's not a whole lot you can do to your wrap to clean it because it's, you know, it's a thread. If you get it damp, it's going to fray. So you would never want to do that. You pretty much, it's nice that it's dark because it doesn't show much of the dirt.
Do you have any problem with warping sticks?
Only time a cue is going to warp is if you don't take care of it. That's why I always say if you've got a nice cue, you should keep it in a case that's insulated. If you keep a cue in your trunk, which I a lot of times have my cue in my trunk, and I keep it in a good case for the sheer reason that I want to protect it no matter what. But hot and cold and things like that, if you've got a cue like this, which is still nice quality and stuff like that, but it's not the same tempered wood as this, if it gets a really hot or really cold and you do it over and over and over, anything can warp. If you take a cue, any of these cues, and just do this for a week, it's probably not going to be straight, just because of the pressure of the leaning against the wall. So that's why anytime you've got a case or a cue, keep it just like this, wherever it's at. Keep it flat like that, or on a shelf or whatever. Don't lean it like this, no matter what, because that can warp anything. And it doesn't really matter if it's a high quality cue or a low quality cue. If you mistreat it, it can still warp. There's things that can happen. A lot of the times you put a cue together and it might go thump, 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 thump. But what happens is sometimes that you get dirt in the joint of a cue. And so because of that, just that alone can cause the cue to have a little bit of a warp to it. But you can actually have that done. You could take this to a person who has a lathe and they can just cut this like about a, you know, less than a 32nd and flush that right back up and the cue will play straight again. It'll look straight again, at least when you roll it. Okay? But anyway, let's get back to these two cues that we're going to show. This one is a well-known brand. I think this is the one, you have this brand too. You have a Lucasi, correct? This is a Lucasi. It's one of my favorite models that they make because it's inexpensive and I think it's a really sharp-looking cue. It's all black and white. This particular one is 19 ounces. It has a different type of joint than a lot of other cues, but it's one that I really like. And what it basically is, it's called a unilock. So that you put this right in here and it slides in and then just takes 2 turns to lock it. So from a machinist standpoint, right, who's the machinist? Don't we have a machinist? I thought we did in this group. Anyway, that's a really nice way to cinch this up. It's a better joint than the one I have, even on my cue, which costs $2,500 in my opinion. I think the joint is actually better. It absorbs more shock. But as far as the inlay around this joint and stuff like this, yes, it is done at a manufacturer. It's not done with hand work. It's done on a manufacturing lathe, but you would never know it. And because everything is done these days on lathes, it's perfect. I mean, things done by hand are not perfect. They're always going to be a little off. So for all practical purposes. But it's got some nice little inlays here at the bottom and the base of this. But this cue will hit right up there with mine. Very, very close. And, you know, it's... Let's see, what is this one going to cost you guys? This one is like $240, and it's regular like right at $300. So anyway, so all the cues that I have are brought you today are between 20 and 25% off. So depending on what quality.
Is there any weight that a woman should have
That's a very good question.
at our age?
I don't think there is a specific weight. I think everybody, it's a personal thing with a cue. I don't suggest anybody shoot with something over 21 ounces. I don't suggest anybody shoots with anything under 18 ounces. It should fall in the middle or somewhere. I would say if a woman comes up to me and said, what's the perfect weight for me? I would be guessing, but I would say somewhere between around 19. is probably what a woman should play with. If a guy asked me the same question, I would say somewhere between 19 and 21. Whatever feels the best to you. And some cues, if you've got an inexpensive cue, usually getting one a little bit heavier makes the cue a little solider. So I would suggest if you're going to buy a cue for $100, you probably should stay in the 20 to 21 range. If you're going to buy a cue that's more than that, like in the $200 to $300 range, it probably doesn't matter. It's whatever you prefer.
How do you feel about small circumference tips as opposed to the routine average? You know.
As far as the second,
Yeah.
you know what? For years, I played with a 12 millimeter shaft. I have a TAD cue, which is a custom cue. It's in a closet. I don't even bring it out anymore because last time I had that estimated it was between $10,000 and $12,000 in worth. I don't even play with it anymore. I had it completely refinished and I put it in a closet because I'm afraid to take it out to have it stolen. So, but what I played with a small size shaft forever. For the first 20 years I played. And then I got a new cue, and I got this one to play 9-ball with, and I went to 13 millimeters. I'll never go back to a small one again.
Why?
Well, basically because you have to be more accurate to make shots with a smaller ferrule, okay? And also you're going to get more vibration from the shaft because it's not as thick. So for that reason, you've got to be more accurate in your aiming. You've also got to be more accurate in when you hit a ball hard because the vibration could cause the shot to vary just slightly. So anytime you can get a little more cushion in making the ball, I suggest you do it. You know, but if you start getting into 13.5, 14 millimeters, it starts getting bulky in your fingers. I wouldn't suggest that either.
13 is the standard.
13 is standard. If you buy a cue in a store, if it's not standard 13, it's unusual. It's unusual. If you like a 12.5, because maybe you have small hands, you're probably okay with that. But I wouldn't go any smaller than that. Now these house cues are older. The wood is nice and dense. You might get a really solid hit out of it, but you still got to be more accurate no matter what to make those shots.
Do any of the pros use the smaller shaft?
You know what? I don't know of any that do. I mean, I'm sure that there's probably somebody out there that does.
Shame on you, Charlie.
Yeah.
You don't get any more action.
But at the same time, the only ones that might are ones that grew up in Europe because they're used to playing snooker.
Okay.
And if they grew up playing with a 12 millimeter, because the snooker balls are smaller than pool balls,
Right.
and they grew up playing with that, they might be used to it and just not want to switch because they're so used to it. But I guarantee you, I was used to it too. When I switched, I'll never go back. Yeah, so, yeah.
Well, let's give Calvin a really...
Thank you very much.
I get no kick from champagne. Mere alcohol, it doesn't thrill me at all. So tell me, how can it be true that I get a kick out of you? Some like the bop type refrain. I know that
This flat and hit it straight. I don't know if we'll make a ball as much, but we'll probably get more separation. Okay. Yeah, a little bit more. I used a little more power that time. Again, both times my cue ball came out to here and got bumped to where it is right now.
You're going to do the stripes and then the solids?
I'm thinking about it. That's gonna help.
Sounds like journaling. This is all.
Hi, baby. Hi. Thank you. I'm glad you were pulling for me. I was too. Okay, there's the stripes. I would take the apex and play position on the 8, but we'll switch over and take the solids now. Let's make sure that's true. We all want to be able to do that today, right? That's part of what we're going to do? Okay. Let's shoot a few stops and draws here while we go. Jesus, just again.
Looks like you use the one on the low left of the cue ball.
You know what? I've had more people tell me that, and it's funny because if you take it, where's the pocket? There we go. I've been at this now for about 40-something years, and I've never been able to fool this ball yet. Whatever I put on that cue ball, that's what it's going to do. Okay.